This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me tonight are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
This week, we've got 5 main features to look at. We're going to kick off with the latest Cockney gangster movie, The Last Heist. Then we have an oddity, a mix of French and Korean in The Vanished. Then we have the perennial favourite, Simon Phillips in Most Horrible Things. Then we got a couple of interesting ones, Bar Fight and Dear Elizabeth. Our short shot this week is a fan film called Fiona. See if you can figure out what that is. And we have Don the Dragon Wilson in our DTV throwback, Red Sun Rising. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first film then is The Last Heist. 4 thieves bonded by honor meet back at their local boozer, the place where it all began. Beneath the banter lies a dark secret that will test the loyalty of these 4 friends to the limit to see if there really is honor among thieves. As I said, this is the latest sort of Cockney gangster movie to hit our shelves. I'm going to keep my powder dry just for a minute and throw this straight over to Steve, you slag.
That's it, you can't. Yeah, it's actually quite a different film, this, to be fair, than what I was expecting. It's a lot more somber, a lot more mellow, and you've got, you know, the usual, like you say, Cockney gangster slags and all that kind of stuff, you know, in the dialogue. But it is very subdued to what I would normally expect from this kind of film. And then there's obviously, not going anywhere with spoilers, but there is a very big twist in this. And it's a bit, you know, timey-wimey jumpy as well, you know, going flashbacks and jumping all over the place. And some of the, actually, not much, but there's some quite violent scenes in it as well that I weren't expecting to go and show as much as they did, in a way. I'm thinking, oh, it'll cut away. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. I thought the actual performances were quite good. Not too caricatured, you know, they're actually quite decent rather than going over the top with it and stuff like that. Yeah, all in all, pretty decent film.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's not the film you expect it to be, that's for sure. You know, and it almost sort of pulls a Reservoir Dogs on us because, you know, the heist, you think it's going to sort of build up to this thing, you know, be all about the planning and all that sort of stuff, you know, getting the team together, you know, hitting a few obstacles along the way before getting there and then sort of trying to get out alive. But it's not that at all. It's something completely different. I mean, you know, we do get to see excerpts of the heist and how it horribly goes wrong for, you know, inside the bank and all the rest of it. But it is, you know, a small part of the actual sort of story. We get a lot more of the sort of history. You know, Perry Benson plays this character called Mick, who's you know, an integral character who's kind of, you know, well, he's not in the present. You know, that's given away straight at the beginning. One of the reasons they sort of get together is to sort of remember him. But you know, we get a lot of his background. There's a great scene in a nightclub when these chancers sort of selling drugs come in and give him some lip. That was quite amusing. I kind of missed not having old Craig Fairbrass in this. You know, that would have really made it, I think. But as
we
it
have got
is,
Terry Stone though.
we do have Terry Stone, and Terry Stone's really good in this. You know, he's the old hand sort of thing. You know, the more mature one. You know, I thought he was really good. Yeah, the bits and pieces I really did like overall. You know, the whole thing with them sort of sitting around, sort of chatting. And then you get this sort of great scene where they start to suspect something's going on. It's really, really well done. The only thing I hate, and I you know, underline hate here, is that horrific opening scene, which is just like a smudge. You know, it's not really sort of showing anything. It's just a smudge across the screen. And I thought, that what have you done? You know, did someone sort of spill coffee on your editing machine or something when you're putting this together? Because that was awful, whatever that was.
What are you
right at the
referring
beginning
to
of the
there,
film.
I don't remember. I mean, I watched the beginning a couple of
seriously,
times.
It kind of tries to show like an excerpt, you know, in media res, of course, my favorite. But it shows you an excerpt of the heist when they're all wearing the Trump masks.
Yeah.
But it's smudged. Everything's sort of in weird, sort of like smudgy slow mo and stuff, and it just looks awful.
Okay. Well,
it's really, really ugly.
I mean, it didn't catch my eye anyway.
No, well, yeah,
Okay.
it really did not sort of put me in a good mood. But I mean, eventually it did put me in a good mood, and I did enjoy it. I thought it was very entertaining. As Steve said, you know, that there were a couple of moments. There's one bit which reminded me of the very first series of Spooks.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, and they definitely went a bit further with this one than they did in Spooks. But yeah, overall, this is much better than I expected. Rich, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I did quite like it. It was more conversational, sitting around a dinner table kind of thing than I was expecting. But there was, you know, like you say, the throwbacks to the flashbacks to the action, to the heist itself, which I thought was really well executed. The Trump masks and that sort of made it quite fun, but there was a lot of serious underpinnings of what was actually going on, and that was quite intense. The thing I find, well, you've already mentioned Reservoir Dogs, clearly must be an influence here, and also it's again, because it's kind of got that conversational thing. Nemesis, the recent Jonathan
Sothcott film,
also came to mind. But I say we got Terry Stone from The Rise of the Foot Soldier and Bonded by Blood and all those other British gangster movies. So he's kind of representing the sort of, you know, standing in, or not standing in, but he's kind of alongside people like Craig Fairbrass, Vincent Regan, as sort of one of the
gives it the pedigree
of the gangster movies and stuff. I suppose you could say.
It gives it the pedigree, doesn't it?
It gives it the pedigree. Yeah, it's from, I think, his company, who'd also made the last Foot Soldier film, if I recall correctly. So he's kind of the classier, sort of dignified one of them, but it is still. And it doesn't often strike me, but I was thinking, in this day and age, you know, these films are really celebrating such toxic masculinity that I'm surprised that they're still very much unchanged. There's still very, maybe occasionally not as misogynistic as they used to be, but often quite. I mean, this one's not particularly misogynistic, but it is very macho and you know. Homophobic sort of slurs against as against each other and stuff as part of the banter and whatnot, which I just sort of in the time we're in, I think that sort of stuff is really past. But if I can take it for what it is, and I do quite like it. I do kind of think the when you're watching sort of this sort of thing, as I've said before, you know, you get those moments that highlight, you know, you start to like the characters, and then you get to see them do something really, really awful, which then sort of sets you back. And Perry Benson's a really good example of that. He's so unassuming and whatever when they introduce his character, and then you see what he's capable of, and he actually really pulls it off really well. So Perry Benson's actually
he's better. I think he's better here than he is in X-Men Man 2.
I mean, I liked him in both, but I certainly see him more of that Accident Man 2 character than the sort of more intense. I mean, he's kind of a bricktop in this, which is really not, you know, like from Snatch, but it's like really kind of he's a real psycho, but he's got this kind of I don't know, sort of comical sort of charm back anyway. But it works. I think it works really well. But then, you know, an hour into the movie, we just get this crazy twist. I was like, seriously, what? I was like, no way. And I was like, I kind of admired the balls of it, to be honest, to start to say, okay, they're trying something. They are trying something a bit different here. They're not just going along.
Thing, it does just come out of nowhere, doesn't it?
Literally.
I think. I know other people have done it before, and when people have seen the movie, they'll know what we're talking about. But so that becomes, that becomes like the final act. It is all basically around that. And I was thinking of like Dogs, which we watched, you know, where there was kind of a big twist, and that then became the dominating thing that was the focus of that last act there. And I think in that case, that felt really stretched out and drawn out, and I think in this case it is a little bit, but it kind of works because you're spending time with different characters and stuff, and it kind of works. It's not just a dynamic between a very, you know, like 2 or 3 people. That we've got a whole table of characters and stuff. So yeah, I like the action bits. I thought the dialogue stuff was all handled really well. The performances are fine. Some of the stuff in the final act didn't work for me, but I could say I admire the braveness of actually trying to do something very different to the typical gangster movie. I mean, I take my hat off to them for trying that. So yeah, I do think it's, if you like this kind of movie, if you're sort of the audience for a you know, British gangster movie kind of thing, you'll I think you'll lap this up, but you'll just be a bit more. You might be a bit taken aback by some of the stuff in it, but I think it delivers all the stuff that you would expect, and it tries to do something a little bit different. What's interesting is that this was originally slated for a cinema release, like like it was going to premium. It was going to be available on digital and in cinemas around the same time. And for some reason that didn't happen, so it's just purely been a digital release. I think that's kind of the right move, because I don't think this has the sort of scale and polish of like Rise of the Foot Soldier, Origins, which was the one before. But I think this is kind of its natural home. I think is in the sort of home entertainment sort of area. So but I think the audience that want to see it are now going to be able to find it even easier, and I think that's probably for the best, really. I mean, they were trying to the poster art is really bad. It's I mean, it's fine, but it's so obvious cut and paste heads onto bodies and stuff. It's just it need, if it was going to be a theatrically released movie, they really needed to put more thought into some properly designed artwork and stuff. But what they've got works well for this particular market, and I think it's not one of the best, but it's pretty damn decent.
Yes, absolutely. And on that note, how are we going to score it? So, Steve?
I'll give it a 7.
I'm also giving it 7. And Rich?
Yeah, number 7 from me.
Yeah, 3 7s for The Last Heist. Go check it out. Our next film is The Vanished. Alice Launey, a French forensic expert still haunted by her past, comes to Seoul to present her work. She will meet Jin Ho, a detective who asks for her help on a murder case. Drawn into the network of trafficking, she needs to face her fears. Interesting one, this, because we have a French director filming in Korea, with a more or less a whole Korean cast, except for Olga Kurylenko, who plays Alice. It is basically a police procedural with a few sort of bells and whistles, sort of psychological trauma going on as well. But I thought this was pretty solid overall. Steve, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, I think solid is probably the right term to use. It's okay. It's well shot. It's well acted. I just found the story to be a little bit too full of coincidences, shall we say? You know, too neatly connected.
Yes, I can see that.
When it comes down to it, especially you know the third act, and I just thought look stretched the credulity just a little bit too much for me. But I thought Olga Kurylenko was great. You know, very different from what I've seen her in before. You know, what was the one where she was like the Marine?
Oh, the Sentinel.
Sentinel,
Sentinel,
yeah. You know, and like Black Widow and stuff like that. So very, very different performance and from what I've seen from her before. But I thought she was great. The main guy I thought was really good. And it's just, like I say, it's solid, you know, it's nothing too over the top, too grand or anything like that. It just goes at a nice pace, and just the third act's let it down for me, to be honest.
It's a bit of a shame it comes so close on the heels to Hunt, which was, you know, just an amazing piece of Korean cinema, and then we get this, and it's just like, yeah, it's good, but it's not going to blow your socks off, that's for sure.
No.
Rich, what did you make of The Vanished?
Well, I think the fact that it's like this French-Korean co-production kind of deal
gives it a novelty, doesn't it?
Gives it a real curious novelty. And I mean, seeing Olga Kurylenko once again, I mean, her filmography just doesn't look that busy, but she's just everywhere. It seems like every 5 minutes there's something coming out with her. I think there was a TV series I discovered the other day that she was in, and also she's got all these supporting roles in sort of bigger films like Black Widow and what was the other thing recently, Princess, and then she's turning up in things like Jesse Johnson's White Elephant,
and Bodicea that he's doing as well.
Oh right, and she's just, I mean, she's so busy, and I continue to think of her as like a young up and coming kind of actress, and you think no, she's been around. I mean, Quantum of Solace was, you know, really quite a long time ago now, and she's just been around for she's been around for ages, and she's become this real mainstay of direct-to-video movies, you know, sort of as a lead. I mean, Bay of Silence is another one we saw. Like you say, Sentinel was on Netflix, and there's a whole bunch of others that I haven't even seen yet. But so she's good. It is Korea that kind of is the main thing. Like the director is, say, this French sort of art house thriller sort of director. That he seemed to really sort of understand the area and the you know, get on with the, you know, it's a film that feels like a Korean movie that's got a French actress in it, not a film that was made by a Frenchman in Korea. So I think that's really to its benefit. I think the Peter May's The Killing Room, which is originally about a Chinese detective and an American pathologist. The names have been changed, I think, so it's not like a straight adaptation. I think they've taken the concept, they've relocated it to Korea, and they've changed the character names and stuff like that. So it's not directly related, but that's what they've got apparently. That's what IMDb says anyway. The plot itself is, as you say, procedural. Something like that. Olga Kurylenko stuff is very disconnected from the main plot for most of it. It's only really in the final act that the things come together fully. There are hints towards it, but it's I think it's pretty good. It is quite harrowing, that last bit, because it's all about
it's all about harvesting organs, isn't it?
Harvesting organs, and how far would you go? So there's like a subplot sort of thing of somebody who's in need of one of these organs, and you know, the lengths they're willing to go to, and that maybe they don't want to know. It's like where, and they're saying we know we don't need this particular thing, we need this, and it's like, well, there's only really one way you're going to get that, and it's just like just do it kind of thing. And then there's the people who are doing it and why they're doing it and their motivations and stuff, and how they and I think it covers quite a lot of ground, but I think it does it quite briskly. So it's actually quite It's
And
quite.
it is really grim, isn't it? I mean, there's a particular guy who he's kind of orchestrating everything, but he also mentions that he's got his own bosses sort of looking down on him, but he's incredibly ruthless at times with how he deals with things. It gives the film a real sort of streak of menace whenever he's around.
Yeah, because it all starts off with this guy who's kind of low on the chain, sort of low in the hierarchy, and he basically messes up, and that's kind of what spurs things on and sort of catches the attention. They're like, well, make sure he doesn't do it again, kind of thing, and he's being a bit careless, and there's these weird things because it's all very you don't know what's going on. He's kind of living at home with his mum, and his mum's like, "Oh, where's that woman who was here? She was here. She was nice and whatever." And it's like, and then later on, you realise what actually is going on. It's like,
exactly,
oh,
Jesus,
and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a. I thought it was. It's not the best, but it's got interesting aspects to it, and I thought it was really absorbing at times. And if you like, if you're interested in films made in Korea and stuff, it's definitely one of the ones that's worth a look. We've seen. Wasn't that Special Delivery Korean as well?
Yes, it was. That was a damn.
That was another good one.
Well.
So yeah,
and
Korea
is
a great. There's lots of fantastic talent in Korea, and this French director has sort of really managed to sort of nail that themselves, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely a credit to him that he's managed to go over to somewhere as sort of enigmatic as Korea and produce a really good police procedural, which feels naturally Korean. You're not seeing it through a Frenchman's eyes, as it were. It does feel, as you said, it feels quite homegrown. The only issue is, as you say, it's a little bit too much of a procedural, as it were. There's not enough incident, really.
No, I think if you like your BBC, ITV 9 p.m. drama kind of stuff.
Yeah,
BBC 4 perhaps is a better example.
Yeah.
If you watch a BBC 4, Scandi and all, whatever those imported detective
Nordic noir
series,
kind of thing.
Nordic noir,
it's exactly that, but it's a Korean version.
But Korean, I think if you enjoy that, you'll enjoy this kind of thing.
Absolutely, and especially it does sort of go into quite interesting sort of meticulous detail, especially at the beginning when it shows you how they keep under the radar for so long. The fact that these bodies just aren't turning up with organs missing and things like that. If you can follow that initial sequence as they sort of come in and figure out how to get the bodies in and stuff, it's very interesting. Anyway, that is us. How we can score it, Steve?
I'll give it a 6.
And Rich?
Another 7 from me.
And another 7 for me. So that's 2 7s and a 6 for The Vanished. If you're a fan of Korean dramas and TV shows and films, go check it out. Our next review is Most Horrible Things. 6 strangers are invited to a dinner party by a charming and enigmatic host, lured by the promise of substantial financial reward if they last the whole evening. However, all is not what it seems. My first reaction to this one after the first 5 minutes was, and this is a running theme for the last few episodes, what the fuck am I watching? It really was one of those, what on earth is this? But it does sort of settle down pretty quickly after that initial weirdness into, basically it's the premise of The House on Haunted Hill, where 6 strangers have been invited along, to spend an evening with the promise of money if they manage to sort of stay the night. But instead of ghosts and ghoulies, we've got this sort of weird, sort of psychological experiment going on by the host. And it is really interesting. I really got into this, I must admit. It does, the ending, I did guess, as to who was sort of what was really going on, but other than that, I thought it was really interesting. There's a great bit where this guy he's been confronted by the fact that he may be racist or is racist, and he's confronted by his three exes on a screen, and saying one of them cheated, and the black guy sort of sweating because he's the guy who cheated with him, which was really funny. I just thought it was really, really interesting the way it played out. Steve, what did you make of Most Horrible Things?
Yeah, I enjoyed this actually because, like you say, it does start off in, very, very strangely with it's like RuPaul's Drag Race at the beginning. And you're like, what? I don't get this bit.
I don't get it at all. Exactly. Yeah.
And to be fair, it doesn't really explain it. It's just weird as fuck. And then we'll crack on. And then it, like you say, it turns into like this psychological thriller. But then you've also got like the police procedural side of it as well.
Yes.
And Simon Phillips popping up again, very subdued to what he normally is,
and killing it.
yeah, really good in this. Also, Sean Patrick Flannery again, as the copper, great, and the female copper as well.
I think that's Natalie Byrne.
Natalie Byrne,
that's the one. Yeah. And to be fair, I actually thought the performances from the kids were good as well. Because sometimes in stuff like this, it's the younger ones can leave it dangling a bit, not putting good performance. But I thought everyone was actually pretty much on the top of the game. But it's very, very, because I was kind of expecting just like your normal like slasher type thing. Being hunted, someone going around hunting down or whatever, or maybe something a bit like Ready or Not, but it's not like that at all. And, it's the promise of money that's keeping them there. And being forced to have their, what do they call it? Not awakening, but
sort of breakthrough.
Like breakthrough.
Breakthrough, that's that's it. Yeah, the breakthrough and stuff like that. And I like the colour scheme. I thought the design of the house was really good as well. And I actually really enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Definitely. Rich, what did you make of this one?
I like the interrogation scene parts the best. I think they felt like it, I mean, I don't know if it was by design, but they felt like a completely different movie. It's like and I know it's a very different environment and stuff, but it was very sort of the way they were shot and stuff, and the casting they were kind of felt on a different level to the stuff in the house, which for me, especially with Simon Phillips is in both sections, but the Simon Phillips factor sort of gave me this kind of Paul Tanter feeling about the whole thing. But the weird thing is it's not got anything to do with Paul Tanter. It's actually made by a Japanese director called Hiroshi Katagiri, who is a director of has directed other stuff before, but his background is in like visual effects and sculpting and stuff, which is quite interesting because this film isn't like a showcase for visual, for those sort of practical effects or anything like that, though there's a couple of bits in it, but it's much more of, it is a character piece. It's like a when in the old days they would call like a drawing room kind of thriller sort of thing, Agatha Christie is almost to that extent.
Yeah, there's a bit of sort of, was it 10 Little Indians kind of thing?
That kind of thing, but not, more
without the hidden killer kind of thing going on.
Yeah, there's not really, it's not really a body count kind of thing. It's sort of similar in a way to what we were talking about with Like Dogs I think last episode. Say sort of this experimental thing, but there's other stuff going on. There's sort of twists in the tale and stuff. The sort of the host of the party, who's he's
Sean Sprawling.
Yeah, he's it's like his character is very sort of I guess, you know, if you buy into his character, you know, he's quite camp and stuff, you might, you know, that will help. I think I was a bit off put by the character. Didn't quite
Do you
work
know he
for
was
me.
also in Wolf Mother?
Was he? Who was he in
Yeah.
Wolf Mother? Do you remember?
He says that he was a bank co-worker, so probably was a small role, but yeah,
Okay. So
he
a supporting role.
dipped his toe into that. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Isn't that funny? Because we did that last week.
Mm.
So yeah, and also the rest of the young cast. I just wasn't that keen on most of them. And I mean, the whole idea with a lot of these characters is they're not supposed to be likable anyway, which doesn't always help. But it was sort of the Simon Phillips stuff that was keeping me a bit more interested in his manipulations and stuff and what was going on with him. And him and I mean, he's done interrogation scenes in other movies before and stuff, and he's particularly sort of quite good in those. So yeah, and the Sean Patrick Flannery and Natalie Byrne playing off that, I thought that worked. It made me think of Knuckle Dust, which, if you remember, was another film which had that similar kind of I don't know if you'd say it was in media res, because it's kind of the whole film is looking back as you're sort of you know, there's an interrogation happening and then they're flashing back to what happened on the night or the night before or a few hours before or whatever the case may be. And I think, yeah, I didn't love it. It's originally called Love Hurts. It's kind of the Most Horrible Things title is curious. I'm not sure why that is. I mean, it made me think of Very Bad Things, which was I suppose a bit similar in a way. Maybe that was by design, I'm not sure. I think it's okay. I didn't love it. I quite liked the sort of silly little twist at the end, but it was really just sort of those interrogation scenes and Simon Phillips, which was really sort of my main interest in the movie, really.
Yeah, I don't know. I obviously, me and Steve liked it a bit more than you did.
Yeah.
But I mean, I certainly agree with it. The interrogation scenes were done really well, and what really helped was the fact that, you know, Sean Sprawling and Simon Phillips were playing these characters who were basically the more intelligent ones in the room, sort of thing. You know, you got the feeling they knew what they were doing and how to beat the cops, sort of thing. You know, there is one moment when one of them kind of slips up and gives away too much information. But by that point, it's too late for the cops to kind of, you know, do much with it. Yeah, the end twist, I had guessed by that point. You know, mainly thanks to the detective. You know, because again, you know, they kind of skipped a few details, you know, in their story basically to solidify it. But yeah, I thought it worked really, really well altogether. There are small parallels with there was a film we covered ages ago, Rich, when we did one of our Christmas specials called, I'm pretty sure it was called Secret Santa, where it was like this big family getting together and somebody laced the food with like PCP or something.
Oh yeah.
And they all started killing each other and all that sort of stuff going on.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably the film I can most liken this to, even though it is still quite different. You know, a touch of like The Invitation or something like that.
Yeah, it's got that dinner party. There was one film way back when called The Last Supper, which was I think there's been a couple of takes on that basically, where a bunch of people have a dinner party and they.
I think there's one coming up as well.
I think there's a few variations on that kind of thing.
There's one called, I'm pretty sure there's one called The Last Supper or something coming out soon. And
there's one bit in this where they bring out a woman and or I can't remember if she's naked, but they get her to strip naked.
She becomes naked.
Yeah, and I was just like. I mean, she was very pretty and everything, but I was just that was I don't know if that just felt a bit sleazy to have that in there. I didn't feel that was really necessary. Although they then sort of lead
Rich,
on.
You're wrong. That was very necessary and integral to the plot.
But there is a bit after that where, you know, a certain character also stripping is involved, and there was a little bit of a twist there, which I thought worked quite nicely. But I thought, I just thought that was kind of that was kind of a bit exploitation movie-ish kind of bit that was happening. I wasn't quite sure about where it was going, and that was and to be fair, that was kind of the only bit like that in the movie. I thought it was going to be a bit more than it was. But it was actually more it was more restrained than I thought it was going to be once that had happened. I thought it was actually going to go down a longer sort of more misogynistic path and stuff, but it is actually quite.
No, it detoured quite nicely after that.
Yeah.
All right, got scores of the doors. Steve,
I'll give it an 8.
Nice. I'm going to give it a 7, and Rich.
I'm going to give it a 6.
All right, a bit of a spread: 6, 7, and an 8 for most horrible things. Go check it out. Our next review is Bar Fight. Nina and Alan split everything in their lives after their breakup and must compete in a ridiculous custody battle for their prized watering hole, in which lines will be drawn, sides will be chosen, and beers will be drunken. Earlier this year, we covered a film called Gatlop, Hell of a Game.
Yep. I thought of exactly the same movie.
Yeah, not surprising because the director Jim Mahoney was in that.
Oh, okay.
I'm just double checking to see. No, he didn't direct it, but he did happen to be in it. This is that kind of film, though. It is a film about people. Yeah. It is a film about their relationships, and it is very funny. I did really enjoy this.
Yeah, it's that sitcom basis, isn't it? It's all set in one place. And it's their interactions and stuff it's a sitcom, basically. It
is a sitcom, and it is very fast paced. You know, there's a lot of good dialogue, a lot of good sort of one liners. You know, and there's probably a dozen lines that you miss because you're sort of still laughing over the last one. This really worked for me. I enjoyed it a lot. So this stars Melissa Fumero from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and you know, as soon as I saw her, I thought, okay, this has got a certain level of sheen to it. It must do to sort of get someone like her on board. But yeah, this just worked really well for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Steve, what do you make of this one?
I didn't like it at all.
Oh, shocker!
I honestly, because like I say, I love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I love Melissa Fumero. I'm thinking, great, yeah, this looks interesting. For some reason, I didn't find it funny at all. There was a couple of decent bits. I mean, I like the big butch, like chef cook thing.
Yeah. Just flipping meat with her hands, yeah.
She was quite funny. But the rest of it, I don't know, it just didn't connect me at all. Like the manager of the bar, he's just a tool who needs to grow a set, and you know, even the security guard needs to grow a set, to be fair, because he's just a fussy as well. And you know, you got the new girl who comes good, and it just seemed very, very cliched. You know, like the filthy best mate who's married with a kid who can't stay out, has got to go back, and I just didn't find it funny, and I was shocked because I was looking forward to it when the link came through, and I had a look. I'm thinking, oh yeah, this looks all right. And again, I mean, like I say, it's like a 70s sitcom, you know, ridiculous story. So you could see it being like, I don't know, like an episode of Citizen Smith or something, you know, where they're trying to
or Friends
take over the. Yeah, something
well,
like that.
This is what it reminded me of as well. It's because no self-righteous bar, no self-right bar would ever tolerate this sort of nonsense. You know, it's like, okay, everyone stop drinking. You know, these guys need to settle their situation before we do anything else. You know, it's kind of like how in Friends, they always commandeer that couch right in the middle of the coffee bar. It's like no one else is allowed to sit there. You know, it's like, no, not really. You know, it's a heightened reality, Steve, is what it is, mate.
It's disappointing is what it is. Honestly, just did nothing for me.
Oh,
and like I say, I was shocked because I was looking forward to it. and yeah, I think I tittered a couple of times. That was it.
How about you, Rich?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect because I didn't know any of the cast or anything. So I went in basically completely cold. I wasn't sure what the scenario was going to be. It becomes quite apparent after the first 10 minutes or whatever. You're like, oh, okay, this is where we are. We're going to sort of settle down here. And I was thinking, I was getting what came up to mind as well as Gatlop was I was thinking it's like Cheers meets The Breakup.
Yes, the breakup.
Yeah,
the breakup really came to mind in this as well, for obvious reasons as the film develops. But yes, and it is that sort of level of film as well, I think.
Yeah, so very much sort of sitcom. Every character is a sort of quirky character, and I quite some of them I like more than others, and some they've all got their own like little subplot moments and stuff. And one of them wants to work New Year's Eve or whatever, and the character who wants to work New Year's Eve, I thought she was particularly. I liked her, and obviously the mute or mostly mute cook. They were good, sort of what do you call it? The sort of harsher characters, the sort of mouthier ones, and the other ones are sort of more the nicer guys. But there was stuff like the barman talking to his sort of not quite girlfriend at the bar, and that kind of kept going back to that, and it didn't really lead anywhere. It wasn't really. It was. I didn't mind it, but there's these little pointless subplots that are going on around the central action of sort of breaking up the action basically between Nina and Alan's feud scenes of where they're basically getting involved in this series of challenges.
Yeah, and I kind of like that though. I do like films where you have these characters who are kind of having their own little film. If you see what I mean, and it's like you could almost sort of see it reversed, and having these characters be the main focus while there's this stupid battle going on in the background. I do like that because let's face it, in a lot of films, everyone's lives just sort of stop dead while the main plot is going on, and everyone has to sort of bear witness to the main plot. So I kind of like it that there's these elements of yes, we're kind of acknowledging that other people have lives and have their own sort of situations going on as well. Whether or not they're actually sort of worthy of our time is another matter, of course. But I do like the effort of sort of going down those little avenues, just to say, we're here for this, but at the same time we got our own shit to deal with.
Yeah, and I quite like another thing apart from the old sitcom angle. I've got this real fondness for those old. I mean, they used to make them all the time, but these kind of One Crazy Night movies where a character would get into a situation, and the story takes place over the entire. I mean, I think Keanu Reeves did one, and there was one called Trojan War about a guy who's trying to lose his virginity, and there was career opportunities with Jennifer Connelly.
One called All Nighter with Emile Hirsch and J.K. Simmons.
Oh right, I don't think I've seen that one. I know that there's things like 200 Cigarettes, which is set on. Yeah. I mean, there's all things like Dazed and Confused and whatever, which are these multi-character ones all taking place over one night. So this is kind of, it's not quite the same as those, but it's very much in a similar vein. And I do like kind of like those movies, and this is kind of charming. It's not perfect, but it's a very pleasant way to spend. I mean, everything's nice in it, really. I mean, there's a little bit of edge, but it's basically harmless. Nothing. The stakes aren't too high, and everyone's even the characters who are nasty are not really that nasty. It's like they do. They might come through in the end or whatever and stuff. So it's very very pleasant movie, I thought, and I didn't really know what it was going to be when I went into it, and I did enjoy it. And it's nice to cover. We haven't covered many comedies lately, and
no, not.
And this was kind of broke things up a bit, and I did enjoy it.
It was pretty good, and like I went into this completely cold. I didn't even know that Melissa Fumero was in it until she appeared on screen. I went, oh, okay. And with a name like Barfight, I mean, it could be anything, couldn't it? It could be really some exploitative, or it could be some bargain basements or MMA movie. Who knows?
Well, yeah.
So,
I mean, we had a film called Chick Fight not long ago, which went to Amazon. That's got Alec Baldwin, and that was all about. I think Malin Ackerman and other characters sort of get into a feud, and then it's leading up to them having an actual fight. And this is not
bitch fight as well. Do you ever see that one?
Oh,
Can't remember who the actresses were in that one. That was quite good.
It's
the woman from
Killing Eve, wasn't it?
Killing Eve. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Oh Christ, can't remember.
Yeah, can't remember that. But that was another one. Bitch fight. Cat
yeah,
fight,
so I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah.
What it was going to be, and it's not. I mean, it's got really nice. I mean, the girl behind the sort of new girl in town is like the naive, and she's working behind the bar, and then they're like, you know how to make all these cocktails. You're in charge of the bar, whatever. And she's like, I don't know how to do it and stuff. And I just thought it would work. But again, it was kind of another film in that kind of Judd Apatow kind of mold of where let's take this sort of big, sort of hairy guy and put him with like this really sort of slim sexy lady kind of thing. And it's like they just sort of they go for that kind of dynamic. I don't know why that always is. I mean, he's very kind of in the Seth Rogen kind of mold, the Alan character.
Yeah, sort of slacker kind of guy. And
it reminded me of like
she's the up and coming up like attorney sort of thing.
Yeah, she's the Katherine Heigl-ish sort of character and stuff like that. So I don't know why that dynamic is so popular, but I guess sort of slightly fat guys are funny. I guess I don't know, but I don't think you necessarily. I think it's
it worked. Yeah,
it was fine. I mean, it's sort of bit by the numbers, but I enjoyed it. And the friend played by Rachel Bloom was very funny.
She was indeed. How are you going to score it, Rich?
I'm going to give it a 7.
And Steve?
I'm going to give it a 5.
Ooh, I'm joining Rich on a 7. 2 7s and a 5 for Bar Fight. Go check it out. Our next review is Dear Elizabeth. A man who leads a dull life accidentally stalks an old college classmate, actress Elizabeth Banks, on social media. He rediscovers more of himself and the true meaning of friendship in his attempts to prove he knows her. A Chicken Soup for the Soul Productions, Rich.
Yeah, who also made One Shot, interestingly, I think.
Did they?
Or at least they put it out in some territories, I believe.
Really? Weird. When I saw that, I went, oh, God.
Yeah, they're quite diverse, actually, in their filmmaking.
Chicken
Very
Soup.
strange.
But anyway, so this is the sort of comedy I don't enjoy as much. This sort of awkward sort of character who you kind of looking at this guy and thinking everyone should be liking him, but everyone's sort of it feels manufactured that people don't like him almost. You know what I mean? He is quite a likable guy, really. And it just feels like everyone's sort of not liking him because the script says so to a certain degree. But having said that, he does sort of shine through quite nicely. Tony Hale plays Sid Straw. He's going to his high school, his college reunion, I think it was, not his high school reunion. And he just happens to realize that Elizabeth Banks is one of his he knew her at college, but no one really believes him, and he's trying to get a signed photo for his brother-in-law because his sister's having a baby. Sister's played by Elisha Cuthbert, and she's really good in this as well. We've also got Alan Tudyk, who's just always brilliant, and he plays this smarmy sort of arsehole who's supposed to be his friend. It was quite amusing, some of his scenes. And
Robbie Amell, don't forget.
Yeah, and Robbie Amell's in here as well. And I didn't enjoy a lot of it, but it did grow on me as it goes. And by the time we get to the court scene, I was like really rooting for the guy and thinking, and that speech he makes about the volleyball game, I thought was great. And you could see everyone sort of hanging on his every word as he's sort of going, it just worked really, really well. And it builds, to this really sweet ending. I just really have to say, I really liked it. Rich, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, I wasn't sure going in what it was going to be. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know much about it. The American title's Eat Wheaties, which becomes apparent what that is. Watch it, but we don't have Wheaties over here, so the which is a cereal, which it's understandable why the title gets changed. It's based on a novel which for which the focus of the character, the person at the focus of the character was Heather Locklear. And they've sort of adjusted it, and I guess they got Elizabeth Banks' permission to they said, who can we use and whatever. It reminded me a little bit of I haven't seen it, but there was a documentary called My Date with Drew, which was all about this guy, and he was just kind of pursuing Drew Barrymore, and he really wanted to try and kind of get a date with it. It was all a bit stalkerish and stuff, and this is kind of a similar kind of thing, but he's introduced to social media at the start of the movie, and he's very, very naive about it. He's never used it before, and he's kind of a man out of time. He doesn't really exist in the modern world, and that's kind of why he's disconnected from a lot of the people who are around him and stuff. And he's got all these quirks and stuff, and he's very successful. He's vice president of marketing and sales and stuff, so he's doing all right for himself. But he's quite isolated, so he immediately kind of reminds me of like a David Brent kind of character.
Yeah,
but without the sort of David Brent is kind of
egotistical
and very much, and he's very selfish and can be a bit cruel and make it, a lot of these kind of characters, Alan Partridge being another example, they have a cruelty to them. They're not about, they'll put themselves above other people, whereas with Sid Straw, he just seems so genuinely naive, and gentle and harmless and whatever. He's never doing anything intent, and he's mortified if he's upset someone. It's like, and there's a real sweetness there, and that I thought worked. And there's certain elements of it. It's all about loneliness and trying to make connections. It reminded me of a completely different kind of movie, but About Schmidt with Jack Nicholson.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw that, but a part of that movie was Jack Nicholson's character sort of self-indulgently writing these letters to a child that he's sort of sponsored in Africa, or I believe, and he's talking about all stuff that's completely irrelevant that they're not going to be that interested in. And stuff, but it's sort of getting it off his chest. He's sort of exercise, and I relate to. I've written letters and stuff in the past. I've had pen friends or whatever, and I definitely relate to that part of the character and that need to sort of do that and make connections with people and stuff. So I kind of relate to the film on a certain level. Obviously I'm not as naive as with him with the social media and stuff, but I do I could sympathize with him, and I liked it a bit like a bit like Bar Fight. All the characters are sort of heightened, they're sort of exaggerations, but none of them are particularly bad. Although there's a couple that are, the receptionist girl that's a bit of a cliche. The receptionist who's just always on her phone. That's a bit sexist and stuff. I think that kind of trope now. We've seen that so many times, but they never do anything to sort of warm you to her character or do anything. They just paint her as a sort of really nasty, sort of selfish, not nasty, but just sort of dismissive and casually cruel. It's like, oh, you've been fired, showing no sympathy and stuff, which I didn't really like. I didn't like that element of it. But then you got things like the waitress at the diner that he goes to, that they've got like a sort of a warm interaction stuff, and that's quite nice. And when he goes on, he goes on these dates, or he goes on a date, and there's that girl, a woman he's on date, and there's a nice sort of dynamic with them for a bit. So he's a character. You spend all the film with him, and I think in the wrong hands, that could become very irritating. You were just like, oh, I've had enough. I just want to get out. You know, it's not like 20 minutes for an episode. You've got to spend an hour and a half with him.
Indeed.
And I enjoyed his company. I enjoyed the story, which, like you say, builds toward this kind of Mr. Deeds-ish kind of climax and it's what, yeah, it's not cynical. It's very hopeful and warm and very positive. You know, it's one of those things where the character goes on a journey that ultimately is for the good. You know, there's you know, things come out quite well for them and stuff. So yeah, I wasn't expecting to. I thought I wasn't going to like it. I was just comedies.
Admit,
I'm very I'm very wary of comedies. I don't watch many of them, and I really like this a lot. I thought it's one of my favorite things that I've watched recently.
It does a good job of sort of tearing the guy down before building him back up. You know, so I did make one little error earlier. I said that Elisha Cuthbert was his sister. She's his sister-in-law.
Sister-in-law. Oh yeah.
It's David Walton, who's his brother. That makes more sense because he's much more sympathetic about a certain incident which happened at their wedding, which is a kind of a funny story, which we get the payoff at the end. About that, which is quite good. But yeah,
what did you think about the lawyer? Because he kind of Paul Walter Hauser, who comes in quite late in the movie and becomes kind of a sidekick for.
As this sort of weird, unlicensed lawyer who, you know, during the court scene, he's sort of almost joining the. You know, not the plaintiff, the opposition.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like Lionel Hutz from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't quite know what he's doing. He's sort of just muddling through it. But yeah, I
do feel like we've seen that before again, but that kind of bumbling sort of cat kind of thing. I mean, it reminded me actually of like John Candy, some of the stuff he used to do.
Yeah.
Like Harry Crumb and actually in terms of lawyers, Joe Pesci and My Cousin Vinny. And I was thinking, yeah, we've seen that kind of thing before, but I liked him. He was a good character, and his wife's there with the babies and stuff. And it's all so silly, but I liked it. I liked all that stuff, and he's like, again, he's got like this little sort of side story that Sid helps him with, and you know, they sort of help each other, and although that's, you know, he's kind of in it for a bit, and then he kind of goes, and I liked all that part. I enjoyed that character. Yeah, I thought he was a good sort of sidekick character to introduce to sort of offset things for a bit.
On that note, mate, how are you going to score it?
I'm going to give it 8. Eat Wheaties.
Okay, I'm giving this a 7, but it is definitely worth checking out. A 7 and an 8 for Dear Elizabeth. Go check it out. Our short chop this week is Fiona. This is it's billed as a Shrek horror film, and it sort of centers around the time when Fiona is still incarcerated in the tower, and all these princes are sort of coming to rescue her, and it deals with the fate of one such prince who happens to come at exactly the wrong time of day. I quite like this. It is very short. It's only about 2-3 minutes long. It's billed as like 5 minutes, but 2 of those minutes are just credits. But I think, you know, like a lot of fan films, they find a way of sort of twisting the genre. So you take something and sort of say, well, you know, actually this could play as a horror film. And I thought they did quite a decent sort of setup with it. Steve, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, it is what it is. It's very short, you know, like you say, it's literally about 3 minutes, and it's just, you know, what would happen if Shrek was kind of real, and like you say, you know, that when the knights turn up, it really is the wrong time of day, you know, and but it was well, the set design was good. It was well shot. Makeup effects was pretty good as well, especially like, you know, there's the gore and the guts and stuff. Well, that was done very well. Yeah, and it is what it is. It's a Shrek / horror film, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Rich, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, I liked it. It's a new one from Locust, or at least on the Locust Garden channel. Director Andy Chen, who's one of his previous films we covered was Crooks, which was the comedy about the two young women and they've got to get money to save to pay for a vet's bill or something, and they go and rob this convenience store, which I really
that's
liked.
a great one.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah,
and this is very different. I mean, I thought he managed. You know, I've seen him do. There was a short. He's done thrillers and called Lying Beside You and other different things, horror and that. So I thought this played really well. I was a little bit disappointed that it's only like a one scene, 5-minute thing, but it is a good example of one of these kind of one of these fan films where what they do is something that you would never see happen in the mainstream. The franchise wouldn't do it. Franchises, it's getting a bit more flexible now. I think you are seeing something, you know, with so for like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, there was the concept short film or trailer, which then ultimately became a new official, you know, reboot, you know, in that style. So it does happen sometimes, and there are, you know, gritty reboot stuff is quite common, but in the fan film sort of space, this stuff is more common. And I thought it was great. I mean, I don't know how exactly it ties in with the canon because I'm not that au fait with the Shrek mythology, but I thought I got the gist, and the execution was certainly really good. I mean, it's only a two-hander kind of thing, and or, like you say, blood and guts and whatever. So yeah, it's fun. And they throw in clever little things like over the end credits, it's someone singing the Smash Mouth song All Star.
Oh, really? I must have
noticed.
But in a really sort of slow way, a sort of slow, sort of sinister way. As I thought that was quite fun. They're playing with it and making it a bit darker, a bit like you know, what was that song? What was the one that became Christmas #1 from Donnie Darko?
Tears for Fears,
Mad World.
Mad World,
sort of changing and sort of taking that song and then sort of changing it and stuff. But yeah, so that was quite fun. So the top and tail of it was good. So yeah, again, one of the short film directors that I've been most pleased with the majority, you know, with a lot of the work that I've seen from them. So yeah, Crooks is a bit longer, and I do definitely recommend that one as well. But this was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't score the shorts, but we do recommend you check them out. This will only take you 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes of your day, and it is, you know, it is very well done. Rich, you wanted to mention another sort of fan film coming up.
Well, this is the thing. I'm not sure if it is I'm not sure. I mean, it is a fan film to an extent.
Is it a trailer, or is it just in and of itself? Yeah.
Well, this is why I didn't want to focus on it just as a short shot, because I'm not sure if it's a concept trailer or whether it's an actual trailer. The director is being very cagey about saying, you know, any more about, you know, because whenever I've asked the question, I said, is this a short film, or is there a feature film coming? And you know, is it a concept trailer? Whatever, and there's no response. Other people have sort of speculating. I've read lots of articles. Everyone's taking it as a trailer for a movie that's coming. It's called GALE, Stay Away from Oz, and it's a a bit like Fiona. It's taking the mythology of Oz. Frank Elbaum, is it? Who's Wizard of Oz, and you know, all that sort of mythology, and putting a really sort of dark spin on it. And I thought it was. I mean, it's getting really good buzz, and deservedly so, around the internet. And I thought it was really cleverly put together. It's a British production, and you know, they're putting on American accents, which I think is quite obvious. But I think they pull it off pretty well. And there's some really creepy kind of visuals and moments in what is it's just 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I kind of did. Yeah, but it did leave me wanting more. You know, I definitely wanted to see more of it.
Yeah, and I think that's the consensus of you know, all the comments and stuff that I'm seeing and the coverage. Steve, did you get to take a look?
Yeah, I did. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I think it could be like a proof of concept. It could be a trailer for an actual feature length. It doesn't give that impression.
No, I think
You know.
I think it's a concept trailer. I don't
Yeah.
think they've shot any more. I think if they have, it's a short film. I don't think there's enough scenes in the trailer.
Yeah.
You know, because the amount of different locations and stuff that they show to indicate that it's a full length. You know, like a let's say like you know,
actual, yeah.
You know, like one of these films, like the Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, for example.
Yeah.
That's going to be coming out, and that is we know that's a full length feature and stuff. But this is.
I mean,
yeah,
I'd say the only thing is it's not going to be as scary as Return to Oz, whatever they do. So I mean, that was just terrifying when I was a kid. It still is.
Which one? Return to Oz.
Yeah. Oh, it's mental, that film. But no, I mean, I think it's a good idea. You know, whichever way they go with it. I just don't. I mean, I didn't see anything Oz like. You know, it was more Kansas set. You know, I don't remember seeing anything to do with Oz. So
no, it's all about the sort of the looming threat of what Oz is and the effect it's had on Dorothy after she's. It's kind of that. It reminded me a bit of you might have Lost the series, and when basically they went on the island, they left the island. The island is drawing them back, and it's like this. It's force on them, and I think that's what they're sort of playing on, is like this. It's sort of messed them up, and Oz has kind of become this sort of threatening place rather than this place of what's the I don't know, but it's not like the wonderful world of Oz, not yellow, everything's lovely and fancy. It's kind of a very dark sort of realm kind of thing is what they're sort of trying to paint a sense of foreboding about it. And I think there's some really nice visuals and stuff with there's scarecrows as a visual. There's not an actual Tin Man and Scarecrow kind of stuff going on, but there are scarecrows shown that in a sort of quite a foreboding way, which I think works quite nicely. But yeah, it is much more focused on the visiting the Dorothy character on her I don't know if it's her home or a home where she's living, and I think it's her granddaughter visiting, and the granddaughter I guess would be the sort of character who's sort of following in her footsteps and potentially going to be whisked away to a terrible world of Oz or something. I don't know, but I thought it was really interesting, and I thought that it had a nice sort of sheen and polish to it, which I liked, and I thought it matched. I mean, I thought it matched Fiona quite interestingly in theme and sort of tone of taking these sort of bright, colourful, fairy tale kind of stories and just sort of trying to do something quite dark and twisted with them. So go check it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, go check this one out. You'll find a link in the footnotes below. Our DTV throwback this week is Red Sun Rising. A tough Japanese detective seeks vengeance after his partner is killed by a deadly Yakuza ninja. Don the Dragon Wilson, probably at his height, I think, in this one. Very, very good. Very typical of sort of mid-90s sort of martial arts action. But very solid. I love the cast in this for sure. So Steve,
did you know it's from the director of Taffin?
Is it really?
Pierce Brosnan movie, yeah.
Yeah, I like Taffin. Okay. Steve, what did you make of this one?
Definitely 90s. It kind of, I've never seen it because I hate Chris Tucker, but it kind of reminded me of what like Rush Hour could have been in a way. I'd say the only thing was it's so racist, it's untrue.
It is very racist. Yeah. It's really unfortunate.
Like Wolf Mother was misogynistic last week. This is the racist one, And But it was nice to see Terry Farrell
Yep.
in something other than DS9. And obviously Michael Ironside turns up as badass as usual. But yeah, it's good. I mean, the mystical bit threw me a little bit, to be fair. You know, we like the two-finger death punch and all that kind of stuff going on. And the end, you know, with the battling at the end, I thought it was a bit weird, but you know, it is what it is. You know, United's martial arts movie. You've got your training, 10-minute training montage in the middle. You know, where he builds his powers up and stuff like that. But yeah, it was okay. It was okay.
Indeed. Rich, what do you make of this one? Had you seen it before?
I'm not sure if I think I had, but I'm not sure. But it was nice to revisit it. The thing was, it's been sitting on Amazon Prime for a while, and then it arrived again with different artwork. Now, what I think it is this is the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray version, so it's in widescreen, which was nice, and it's got the new artwork on the thing. But I'm pretty sure the previous full screen, not full screen, pan and scan version was available previously. So it was nice. It's always nice to see one of these old mid-90s action movies in its original ratio, which is really a rare treat. The cast is great. Say Terry Farrell's lovely, but very, very racist. And she's the love interest. So casually racist, a lot of casual racism. Great, a fantastic cast of you know, cream of the crop sort of Asian actors like Soon Taek-oh, James Liu in like his first big bad guy role in this Mako as the master who trains them. Now, one of the weird things is so Don Wilson is a Japanese cop.
Yep.
But he's got an American accent, and I wasn't sure if he was Japanese, but he was raised in America, but then went back to Japan, or what was, because it almost seemed like he'd never been to America before, but he was speaking America fluently with an American speaking English fluently with an American accent. So I was a bit thrown at times. Maybe I just wasn't paying quite enough attention,
or too much,
or thinking about it too much, maybe. So yeah, Don Wilson's good. So Don Wilson, if nobody's ever seen him, imagine Dean Cain was Bruce Lee. He'd be Don the Dragon Wilson, basically. He's very Dean Cain, and he's very likable. He even looks quite similar to him, and he takes those sort of. Except Don Wilson's got kind of, he does the sort of bad guy thing, but he's very likable, sort of not bad guy, hurting people and stuff, but he's a very likable, friendly guy, makes jokes and stuff. He's so I've always quite liked Don Wilson. We saw him, well, not saw him, but we heard him, Mike and I, recently on the big screen at a special screening of New York Ninja, so which is probably the only time that Don Wilson's. No, that's a lie, because he was in Batman Forever, so it's not the only time he was ever in a cinema. So he was in a very unrecognizable dubbed version form in Batman Forever, and he's probably a few places anyway. But he's very much a DT, or straight to video, I should say, staple character, actor. So yeah, is it one of the best? I'm not sure. It's kind of bland in a lot of senses, but it's quite fun. It's mainly interesting because of the cast, the sort of what Steve was saying about the sort of visual effectsy stuff. That was quite a common thing about some sort of martial arts films in the American martial arts films in the 80s and 90s. The Last Dragon with Taimak did a similar thing, and I think sort of exaggerating this sort of fantastical element, but it's very unusual here because everything else is very grounded, but then you've just got this kind of supernatural stuff that's kind of as like a sort of addressing. Also in the cast is Michael Ironside. There's not enough of him, but he's always great value. And so looking back on it, seeing it now, it does feel a lot. I mean, a lot of the Alien Nation did a similar thing and stuff, but it's the racism stuff that really sort of
that's what stands out, isn't it?
Yeah, it is what stands out, unfortunately. And I don't know. I don't fully understand the whole woke thing, but maybe is that part of that? Is that the sort of what we know now, looking back on something and going, actually, that was a bit wrong, wasn't it? Is that what woke is?
Just
Is
certain
that
degree, yeah. I'd say.
I haven't quite got my head around the whole concept of what, you know. It's just a term people throw around that I don't fully understand. So I wonder.
There's that really. You know, there is that really dodgy bit, isn't there, where Terry Farrell's character has to split up this detective who's basically beating up this Hispanic guy for no reason other than the fact that he's Hispanic. You know, that was bad for a start. But yeah, no.
Was there a fight I know there was a scene in a lift, but I can't remember. Was there a fight, Mike? Because I know you like a fight in a lift.
I do.
Did they actually have a fight?
I don't think it did, unfortunately.
It's not a fight.
It's not a fight, but it's this sort of, exactly as Steve said.
Yeah.
How did you get on with it, Mike?
I didn't mind it. I must admit, it is a step down from something like Showdown in Little Tokyo, which is probably it that's sort of what it's aspiring to. It feels like a badly shot PM entertainment film. You know, I'm watching sort of fight scenes, and the way some of the things are edited, like say Don the Dragon would do a jumping spin kick, and the editor would edit midway through the kick to do a close up, and then finish the kick off. I'm thinking, I'm pretty sure he could do the kick fine, but you got to mess with it all the time. And a lot of it, I watched it thinking, how much better would this be if someone like Isaac Florentine or JJ Perry or someone like that was directing the same material? How much better would this film have been?
I think that's par for the course with basically all these movies. I mean, from the 80s and 90s, American Ninjas and all that sort of stuff. The quality of the action is not what we've come to get quite used to and sort of held up as the high standard. So when you go back and watch a film like this, you can't quite enjoy it to the same level, I think. Or personally, I can't. I mean, I thought it was fine and the action was okay, but it wasn't anything particularly notable. And yes, the sort of PM, I mean, it's definitely got that kind of PM entertainment kind of look, but not the same level. There's not nearly as much action as you would get in a. No. It's certainly in terms of vehicular.
Nor explosions, or car chases. No. But even so, I thought. I sort of I didn't sort of really get into Don Wilson's stuff when it was coming out, and I am sort of way behind in his sort of filmography. But I thought this was, better than I expected overall.
I think it's a good example of the movies he was making. I mean, a lot of them are very similar, but I think if you want to see sort of some of his better, more interesting work, you've really got to go to Last Sentinel, which he did with Jesse Johnson, which was that was kind of a coming out of retirement, doing a coming out of retirement, doing a very different kind of movie than what he'd become known for. It didn't actually lead to anything much more after that, but it was a really interesting experiment. And he was pretty. I mean, at the end of this one, I think he's having the fight, and his shirt has to get ripped off. At some point, so that he's fighting, and then he and say Jamie. I mean, it's the cast for this. I mean, to see him with like James Liu and
James Liu was very good in this.
With his hair, massive.
His hair. There's a funny thing, it did remind me of. I don't know if you ever played these video games like Double Dragon and Final Fight. You sort of like side scrolling, sort of like beat 'em ups and stuff. And there's one move he does where it's like three guys are jumping on him, and he suddenly does this sort of jumping spin kick and knocks all three of them on the ground. I thought that is straight out of Double Dragon. It's somebody's been bashing the keys basically. Kick. But it looked great. It looked great. He looked great. But it's really cool.
And it's available on Amazon Prime.
And it's on Amazon. It's also on Plex as well. You can find it on another place.
I think the Plex version is probably not the widescreen version that you've got on Amazon at the moment.
Possibly not.
It's probably the old pan and scan version.
I don't think it is, to be honest.
I might be wrong. Could be wrong.
It is a widescreen presentation. It's not square. Put it that way.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, that's good. That's nice.
Yeah, we do not score the throwbacks, but we do recommend you check them out. Or we recommend you check them out. Please don't watch Wolf Mother that we saw last week. But we do recommend this one if you like a bit of 90s beat 'em up action and you're unfamiliar with Don the Dragon Wilson. This is a fair place to start. So that is the end of this week's show. So thank you to Rich and Steve for joining me and talking about all these films.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. Yes. Some real surprises this week. Really happy with our selection. Even something like The Last Heist, which you kind of expect. You think going in thinking you know what to expect, and it sort of throws you a curveball. So that was really interesting. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter and Facebook at the DTV Digest. Also check us out at the Short Shots, where Rich puts a new shorts link every evening around about 8 o'clock. Other than that, thanks for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.